Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz. Hope you all are doing very well today. There was an episode that I released long ago on the show that was extremely popular, and it's really different because it is not technically of an industry professional in events and weddings, but rather a recording artist who had 3 songs that were and are huge at weddings, 2 of which were smash hits, including I Could Not Ask for More and I'll Be. Yes, we're talking about Edwin McCain. He also had a 3rd song called Walk With You, which was and is used often during ceremonies when the father walks his daughter down the aisle. It's really beautiful and touching. And I've got samples of some of these songs in the interview, and so I'm sure you'll probably instantly recognize them. And Edwin and I had such a great conversation. He has such a special relationship with weddings, as you're going to hear, and it's really moving and fun to listen to. And he brought it up, not me. Also, he is so gifted, humble, passionate. And so this is a really great story that all of us in the event industry could use, not only for the details, which is really interesting about these hit songs, but it's a story of persistence. And you know, I could really relate to this story. I think we all can, in terms of also needing to take in what we have. And Edwin talks about being grateful in such a moving way. And so I do believe that this is a story that we could all really enjoy hearing. You know, and it's interesting how I met him. So as you all know, I have a music and entertainment company, Kushner Entertainment, and one of my top acts is called Sound Connection. And this is years ago. The family had already hired us to do the wedding, and they brought in Edwin for about a 20-minute set, a little bit more than that, in order to sing I Could Not Ask for More, because the couple had really bonded together through this song, I Could Not Ask for More, and also a lot of Edwin's songs. It was really special to the couple, and it was a present from the groom's father. And so it's funny because I really did not know much about him at the time. I knew his songs, but I didn't know him. And when I was told who it was, I really had no idea. I didn't think that of finding the songs, except that they told us we should learn I Could Not Ask for More to support him with. And I was thinking, maybe we should, he also wanted to do some other songs with us too. I thought, we should probably have a little bit of a rehearsal with him. And so he came in, and immediately I was like, this guy's big time. We got it really quickly how seasoned this guy was and wonderful. And so we had a great opportunity to not only back him up, but perform with him on some other songs. And then there was a period where he was just singing with his acoustic guitar, and he brought another guitarist with him during part of the wedding. And while the band went and took a break, I stood there by the side to listen to him, and I was blown away. I bought every record that he had, and he became one of my favorite artists and still is. So enjoy my conversation with Edwin McCain.
I am so happy that I'm perennially associated with weddings. And I'll be your crying shoulder. I'll be. Because every year, it's like I get a new life. And people use these songs in potentially the most important day of their life. And how amazing is that?
Welcome to The Wedding Biz, the show about the global wedding business and your backstage pass to the happily ever after world of professional dream makers.
I gave you my heart on a silver platter, 'cause you make my dreams come true.
So Edwin, man, I don't know if you remember, but the very first wedding that you did was back, I believe, in Washington, D.C., like 15 years ago, something like that. I think the Mayflower Hotel. There was this band there was this tall woman with bright red hair. Do you remember that very well?
I do remember that wedding band. She sang her butt off.
Yeah, she actually is Silver Logan Sharp from Chic at the time.
She's for real,
yeah,
man.
wasn't she? I had a female singer that was sick, and she stepped in. She was a good friend.
She is faux real.
Yeah, and that was a wild gig because at the time, I didn't know a whole lot about you. And ahead of time, I guess your manager had said, in addition to the hits and the reason we were there for this bride and groom, their first dance was I Could Not Ask for More. And, you brought, is it Charlie, a guitar player with you, played out of Nashville all the time?
Larry,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But you had sent a message saying for the band, okay, if they could learn a medley with So Lonely by the Police, No Woman, No Cry, Bob Marley, and Maggie May. But when I heard that you wanted No Woman, No Cry, that's when I knew you were cool.
Oh, that's funny. Because normally I would just do an hour of Earth, Wind and Fire.
Oh, yeah. No kidding. We could have done that too.
I'm the biggest Earth, Wind and Fire fan there is. That was like the reason I started playing music.
No kidding. How old were you at the time?
Little. I mean, I was 7 or 8.
So is that what got you started with music? Were you playing anything at that time?
No, I wasn't. Well, yeah, I was in church choir. I was singing soprano in church choir.
Soprano?
Yeah, which is church, it's Southern Daycare church choir. So yeah, I had a soprano voice when I was a little boy, and we sang all of this, not contemporary, classical church music, straight out of the Canterbury boys choir kind of stuff. And we had a choir master that was, old school choir master. Your pitch had to be right or you're in trouble. And they drilled it like a military operation, and it was great. We loved it. I mean, I did. I loved it. I mean, I guess that may sound kind of weird that a kid like being in church choir. I dug it.
No, because I dug in 6, 7 years old, and I welcomed anything and everything. I was so excited. That passion that gets awakened.
The sound of a real live giant pipe organ is amazing.
It's a blow-away.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, so when did you start with guitar or writing? When did all that begin?
I was in high school bands. I was in bands.
Which bands? Like stage band, you mean, or something like that?
No, I was.
Bands that during high school, like cover dance bands kind of stuff?
Yeah, we would play, some originals, like 1 or 2 original songs that I'd written. Yeah. But mostly we were playing like Steppenwolf and Spencer Davis Group. And we would try to play Tower of Power stuff. And the thing was funny because I wanted to play Cheap Trick and Van Halen, but one of the guys in my band, this guy named Jason Moore, his father was an old musician, a guitar player, and he wouldn't have it. He was, if we were going to play in this band, we were only going to play good music according to him. Yeah. Which turns out he was right, but I would always be pissed because I wanted to play Cheap Trick.
That's funny, man.
And Van Halen and all this stuff. And we ended up playing all this really complicated, cool music. But that was also too, because Lenny Williams became an influence, singer for Tower of Power. Yeah. Lenny Williams became an influence on me.
Man, all these horn bands you're talking about.
Vocally, yeah. So I was around some really cool music, whether I liked it or not. And it couldn't help but rub off. But then that whole, storyteller, precursor to bluegrass, aspect of songwriting where it has a message, a story. It's inside someone's life. And, the collision of those two things is how I came to be musically.
So what is it that, I'm going to skip forward. I mean, what broke you into the industry? How did that happen?
We were, gosh, in the, I don't know if you've read Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers.
I read a good amount of it.
Well, he really hits something when he talks about the timing being so important. Yes. And timing was so important with us. We were,
who's we?
Our band, me and my band. All right. We were coming up right 91, 92. We were out in the clubs playing and opening for Hootie and the Blowfish and Dave Matthews.
But how did you even get to that?
And frat houses.
I mean, you had to have some kind of success to be.
Yeah. Well, what had happened? Well, I moved down to Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, and was playing as a solo acoustic guy.
Okay. Like at the bars, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I would play. This is the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I wasn't good enough to play a lot of the solo acoustic guitar guy songs, like a lot of the James Taylor and a lot of, there was a lot of that music that's too hard to play. Yeah. So I learned all this kind of weird, like I was playing Hendrix and Jane's Addiction and weird, like just covers you wouldn't expect to hear nowadays. I guess maybe you would, but I was a little on the outside of that whole thing. And only because a lot of it was easier to play okay. And it was just easier to play this stuff. And so I knew a few of the obligatory request songs, but I didn't know them all. So I was always afraid to put a tip jar out because I felt like that obligated me to play a song that I wouldn't know how to play. So right. I never had a tip jar.
Yeah, play Fire and Rain will give you $5 a kid.
Right. Yeah. And so I would just sit there and play whatever I wanted to. And I put in my 10,000 hours in Hilton Head. I got down there and I remember, I got a couple of gigs and I was like, holy crap, they're paying me $150 a night to play guitar.
Yeah.
And I only have to play for 4.5 hours. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so I got as many gigs as I could. So by the end of that first summer, I was playing 10 shows a week. And I was playing 3 on Saturdays. This is no joke. I would play 12 to 4 at the Holiday Inn Tiki Hut.
Yeah.
6:30 to 10:30.
Oh my God.
At Sneakers Beach Bar, which is on the north end of the island. And then I would play 11 to 2.
What about your voice?
At Sax. And well, that was where I developed Teflon coated titanium for vocal cords.
Jeez.
That I don't have anymore, by the way. But I literally played as many gigs as I could get my stupid hands on. And it was like trial by fire. You had to figure out how to entertain people that didn't really give a crap about you because they're busy drinking their drinks on vacation. And I had to learn when to try to entertain those people and when to just be background music. And,
sure.
And you
kind of read the room.
You had to, it was you have to put your ego away and just play for the room and play for them to have the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, because that's the point. They're on vacation. They didn't pay a cover charge to hear you.
Right.
They're on vacation. So you're setting a tone. And so anyway.
But wait a minute. But that's so unusual at that age and that time to recognize that.
Oh,
because most kids just want to play and, have the rock star fantasy.
Well, but a lot of it too was, if I keep people out there happy on that deck drinking and tipping the bartenders, then I'm going to get kicked back by the bartenders and I'm going to make the owner of the place happy. Yeah, but I'm going to still
give you credit for that. You're thinking about the atmosphere and the vibe and setting this emotional undertone given what's going on. I mean, that is a skill for sure.
Well, and invariably at some point there'd be at least 1 or 2 tables that were listening. And so you just play to them and that would be how it went. And so I learned over the years of just how to do that and how to communicate. And it was, it's live without a net. And I kind of just learned as I went and I played places that I was good enough to play.
Okay.
I didn't try to overreach it.
Right.
I played, I say this all the time. There's a gig for everybody.
Yeah.
For everyone's skill level, there's a gig. You just have to find it, but there's a gig for everyone. And it might be an open mic or it might be your friend's bar at first, but that's where it starts.
It can even just be with your friends.
But and it can be sitting around a campfire.
Yeah.
Right. So, I did that for a while until I had kind of taken that to as far as you could take it.
And around how old are you now?
20.
Just roughly. Okay.
20-ish.
All right.
So I had started to hire other people. Like I had met Craig, my sax player, and he was playing with me. And we had this percussionist named Kay Smith, who was an ex-basketball player from Kent State, that looked like Cool Mo D, was like 7 feet tall and played congas. And so we had this kind of cool little thing happening. And then I felt like, okay, well, we've hit the ceiling on where we can go in this town. But what I didn't realize was that over the course of however many years we were there, 2 or 3 years, I had essentially been on tour on the eastern half of the U.S. because all of those people had come from all over the place and had seen us and we'd had fun with them and I'd made a personal connection. And so when I decided to put a band together and go out on the road, I had sort of already touched a lot of areas.
So you had a fan base to a degree.
I don't want to say I had a fan base.
But they were aware of you.
Recognition.
Yeah, they were aware of you.
Yeah, they were like, that kid that played in Hilton Head is coming to our bar or our frat house. And so, this was timing. At the time we hit the road, I said I'd saved up some money and could afford to pay a band and fraternities would pay a pretty good rate for a house band to come in and play a party. Mm-hmm. And we had a PA and a box truck, and we would play we played frat houses up and down the East Coast. And it was not uncommon. Like, for instance, I tell people this all the time. They don't believe me, but, we would be at W&L University in Virginia. Dave Matthews would be playing SAE. Yeah. We would be playing KA. Hootie and the Blowfish would be playing Kappa Sig. Jeez. The Grapes would be playing, on and on and on and on.
That's crazy.
Colonel Bruce Hampton would be playing the Phi Delta house. I mean, on the same weekend, you would have the most ridiculous lineup of musicians playing fraternities. And that's just what it was. And that's what we did. And Southern bands, the most you could hope for was to hit the fraternity circuit and then move up into the clubs like the Flood Zone in Richmond, the places that had the nationals, but that would occasionally have the regional acts too. And if you were a Southern band, like that's the best you could ever hope for. Maybe if you were lucky, you would get a Miller Genuine Draft sponsorship and be one of those club bands. And so that was our.
Were you doing originals at this time? More?
I was doing originals by then. It was all originals at that point. With the exception of a couple of like a Seal cover or something, but 95% original. And so, Dave Matthews started to make some noise and got signed. Hootie and the Blowfish got signed, and we were the opening act for them.
I see.
And then
you got the
every record, as soon as those two acts blew up, everybody in the Southeast that had a band got a record deal. But we were kind of number 3 in line. We were the little brother to those two bands, and we got swept up in the first wave.
What label?
Of Atlantic.
Man, how exciting.
We were with Atlantic and with Hootie. And so why not go with them to Atlantic? And we knew everybody already because we had been backstage with them all. And so it wasn't a stretch.
Well, and in those days, the artists that were on the Atlantic label, I mean, you had to be just beside yourself.
We were, it was interesting. It was, I tell people all the time, it was like, you feel like getting signed is some kind of finish line, but it's not. It's actually, it's like an entrance to,
but it's still a huge milestone. Now the door's open.
Well, and the difference was, and I followed my heart because we didn't actually sign to Atlantic. We signed to Lava Atlantic, which was Jason Flom's startup label. And Jason, as it turns out, is he and I were, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, we have the same ethic. He wanted to do his own thing. He got his own label imprint, and he signed people that were like-minded. And we had this little gang, like Kid Rock and Sugar Ray and Jill Sobule and me and, who else? It was like this little gang on this subsidiary label that nobody thought was going to work. And we all kind of banded together and we all supported each other. Like I would go do free radio shows to get Kid Rock's songs added to other stations. And we would do cross collateralized support, and we worked with each other, and we had a lot of fun. It was like a us against them mentality. And then of course it worked and a bunch of people broke. But it took a lot. I mean, it took a lot to be able to, because Atlantic was this juggernaut and they had massive acts. And so here we were over in this little subsidiary label working our butts off, and it finally came true.
And so what was the first song for you that broke?
Well, it was a song called Solitude. That Darius Rucker, very generously, not agreed, but asked to sing on, so that he could help me out.
Oh, awesome.
I'll tell you, you can't, I could never repay him for the things he did for me early in my
career. And most people wouldn't know these kinds of things.
No, and I'll tell you, I've tried to explain it to people. The generosity and the kindness that they showed me by bringing me along with them for the ride is why I'm sitting in this chair.
Huh.
They could very easily have gone, yeah, we're not helping you. We got our own things to do, and they carried me along with them and gave us support and helped promote us. And, you can't ever repay it. I try my best and I can't, I won't ever be able to.
So now you're in, what's that, mid-20s you're talking about?
This would be 94 when we got signed. So I was 24 and 95 was when Hootie went on the tour that I had named Summer Camp with Trucks. And that was right when they had sold it.
And what did that mean? Why was that?
Well, some interviewer, it was right at the beginning of the backlash. So it was a little bit of backlash starting with Hootie because they had gotten so famous and people were it was oversaturated.
Yeah.
And there were people kind of starting to push back on it.
Yeah. He was being accused of being too pompish.
Right. And so I had some morning show kind of satirical angled DJ trying to get me to jump on this bandwagon a little bit. And he was like, what's it really like touring with these guys? I said, well, it's like summer camp with trucks. And then they heard the interview and named the tour Summer Camp with Trucks.
Oh man, all the equipment and everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just one of those things we were 25 years old touring the country. Meanwhile, like 18 months earlier, we were playing frat houses.
Yeah.
And now we're doing 70,000 seat outdoor shows.
Oh, that's right. Cause you're opening up for
and
these
I'm opening.
Oh my God.
We're on tour together having the best, sitting backstage going, can you believe that there's 50,000 people out there waiting to hear your stupid ass? And you can't, it was, and this is how we would go on days off. We would go somewhere to play golf and hang out. And we were so used to being like we used to be that we would share hotel rooms with each other.
Huh.
Like we would room 2 at a time.
Yeah. You know what people don't realize outside of the business, like I still get it because I'm still performing, is that sense of community. But for me, it's almost like a high school hang when I'm in the green room with my band people. We sometimes do that still.
Suspended adolescence.
Yeah.
It is.
So what was the next big song for you?
Well,
big break.
I'll Be was the one where I got to stay.
And I'll be your crying shoulder. I'll be love suicide. And I'll be better when I'm older.
I'll Be was the one where I got to stay. Because Solitude did well, but then with the backlash with Hootie, they took a bunch of time off in between records, and anything that was sort of attached to Hootie at the Atlantic level was pretty much not on the radar. They weren't going to have it. They realized there'd been pushback. They were busy promoting other people. And Jason, who I love to this day and we're friends, he never ever did anything but tell me the straight truth. Always. Yeah. I never ever wondered if there was subtext. He called me. He just said, listen, you need to come up with something great or they're going to drop you.
Huh.
Or they're going to,
talk about some pressure.
Or they're going to basically demand that I drop you because they're not going to spend any of Time Warner's resources on you unless you've got something great.
Yeah.
And so, I had this little napkin that I had written down the chorus to I'll Be on and I sat in my apartment.
Did you have the melody to it or just the lyrics?
Yeah, I had it in my head.
Yeah. All right.
And I sat down in my apartment in Atlanta and, worked on this tune and I played it live one time in front of people and saw the reaction and said, this is it. This is the song. And it took some serious finagling to get it to break.
What do you mean? How so?
Atlantic, again, they weren't real
hot on the song.
No, not a bit. They
because it's slower and
yeah, and you got to remember, I'm just the friend of Hootie from South Carolina, and so they released it to 3 radio stations, not what you would call a national.
Yeah, it's not a big,
release, not a big priority for them. And at the time, I wasn't supposed to have the codes to the conference calls, the corporate conference calls.
Yeah, come on.
But I had.
What are you leading to here? Okay.
No, I would listen. to the conference call.
Are you shitting me?
Yeah, because I wanted to know where I stood.
Oh my God. You just got the mute button or you're being quiet?
Yeah, and I just sit there and listen.
This is a first. I've never heard this before.
I used to listen to the conference calls and you would hear they would go through the bands.
Yeah.
And I was either last or even not even.
What would they say about you? Do you even remember?
Yeah, there was a couple of,
that Edwin dude.
Well, I got a round face, and at the time too, I wasn't exactly, for them, I was not young.
Uh-huh.
I was 27.
Okay, true.
I was 27.
Right.
And I was kind of chubby and I wasn't really marketable, in that way. So I get it. And, how are you going to sell this? I don't know. Anyway, so I got it. So I knew that we weren't ever going to be a priority. So the only thing we had to do was find a gap, because if Stone Temple Pilots had an album out, we weren't going to get any help. Okay. So we waited until there was nothing happening.
You're timing the market, basically.
Nothing happening. And we released I'll Be, and they said, okay, well, we don't have anything else going on. We'll roll it out to 3 stations.
Wow.
In Mississippi and Alabama. It was two stations in Mississippi and 1 in Alabama.
And what happened? People call in?
No, well, not right away. I don't know how far out on this limb I want to go and tell you what we did.
It's just you and I, man. Okay. It's just you and I talking here.
We may or may not have had people going to record stores and buying.
No, but of course, everybody does that. Come on. Right. People have their friends and family call the radio station.
Artificially inflate some sales, basically to show some spins to sales numbers. Right?
Yeah. But still, man, people got to catch on though still. Eventually.
So we did a little bit of that, and we had people sending us the records they would buy, and then we would sell them again at our show, but the UPC code would count as 2 sales for 1. So we were doubling our sales.
This is brilliant.
Yeah, it was. And so, but of course, Flom was smart. And he called me one night at my house. He goes, "Listen, Jethro, if your cousins are buying records in Alabama, I'm going to kill you." And I said, "Look, I don't know what you're talking about, man." But so I guess they saw a little bit of a tick, an uptick in the numbers.
Yeah.
And they put the song on Dawson's Creek.
Whoa.
And Atlantic did their magic, and their promotions department got the song placed in Dawson's Creek, the TV show. And after that episode, sales went from 5,000 a week to 40,000 a week.
Oh my God.
And so at that point, Atlantic turned on the machine, and we got to ride
the promotion machine we're talking about.
The full weight of.
So now they're really pushing
Atlantic
you, and
records.
you're out there. Yeah.
We got to sit in the front and ride with the captain.
Were you still listening with the conference call?
No, not at that point, man. I was just like, and at that point, my thing with them was, hey, you just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Whatever radio promo, whatever you need, whatever you want, I will do it. And I did anything and everything. And radio promo was my goal. And I used to have my sheets, and I would call every program director I could in a day and talk to them personally and do I loved the hustle. I loved the hustle with the local radio guys, the old school guys that were there in the 60s and 70s that were still working for Atlantic. I loved riding around the cars with them. And I loved trying to get the ads. And it got to the point where, I was getting credit for my own ads. And when what
do you mean by that?
When you get an ad on a radio station, like you get points compared to all the other promotions staff. And so I was competing. Like I was in there competing.
That's interesting.
And I was getting ads for other artists. Like I got into the game so much that they, they used me in other ways, and because it was it was fun to be a part of the big time music business. I was part
and
of,
there was still a music business in those days.
It was at its absolute zenith.
Yeah.
It was at its biggest point. And I got to know Tom Pullman and John Ivey and Dan Kiley, rest his soul, and all of these big time radio guys and Rick Dees and it was part of a tradition, and I felt honored to be part of it, and I loved working at it, and I wore what they told me to wear, and I went on the shows they told me to go on, and I had a blast doing it, and I knew when it was over too, because they told me.
Yeah.
You know? They told me when Messenger, Could Not Ask for More came out.
Yeah.
I found all I've waited for, and I could not ask for more.
They had done some metrics, and they had pushed it hard for about 3 weeks. And then they said, well, this record's only probably going to go gold. So we got to move on to other things. Cause again, at the time they had artists selling 10 million records regularly.
Yeah.
So when you had an artist that was going to go gold, they got to move on. And so I rode the ride for as long as I could.
On I'll Be, you're talking about.
Yeah. On I'll Be. But when we switched to Could Not Ask for More is when.
Well, wait, let me hold up for a minute.
Off.
Yeah, but I want to come back to a minute to I'll Be.
Yeah.
That song, I mean, all your stuff is great, but the match of the melody with the lyric, that particular, this is interesting. I told my brother, I'm seeing you today, and he's got some different tastes. In a heartbeat, he was like, and he started singing it. Yeah. I'll be your flying. I mean, everybody know that melody, Edwin, the lyric too, but that melody.
Yeah, it was,
How did you feel? Like when I used to write, I had these moments. It was like the greatest feeling. I mean, do you remember writing that vividly?
Vividly.
And did you feel it when you hit that melody?
Green futon that I used to, have in my apartment in Atlanta. I got snotty nosed. I get emotional on the ones that I think that have always been impactful. You get emotional because it seems like, this is it. But you gotta remember at the moment, I've always called this song, it's a half court shot at the buzzer is what it was for me.
Because of the pressure
it was like,
too, you
better show up.
How did you do that? But that's another thing. I mean, when you write, you got to let go and be completely vulnerable and not have any of that stuff in you. How were you able to set aside that pressure?
I always kind of work like that.
Just kind of didn't give a shit in a way.
No, I always wait until the last minute, until the pressure's high. And then I do work when the pressure's high.
So it's not like, the inspiration hit you and you wrote it. I mean, clearly you sat down and I don't want to say crafted.
I had the melody in the chorus, and I figured I'd get the rest of it later. I had it, and I carried it around with me on a napkin in my bag for, 6 months. And then when it was time to put it down, I wrote it.
And obviously still, I'm skipping just for a moment, then we'll come back. But, again, that's one of the big tunes for you. Everyone wants to hear it at every show. You've probably sung it, God knows, thousands of times. I mean, I know this is a typical question for artists, but how do you keep singing it? Because I've heard you several times with the same passion, like you're singing it for the first time every single time. How are you still doing that?
Because I love singing, and I love the song for what it's done for me. And so out of respect for the song and it's like a
relationship with the song, you're saying.
It's a relationship with the song, but honestly, it's a respect for an audience who could possibly be comprised of people that have never seen us play before.
Yeah.
And there might be somebody hearing this for the first time. And if that's true, then I owe it to the fact that they got up off their couch and came out and spent their evening with us to give them the best possible
Listen,
version.
man, I've heard that song a million times, and I've heard you sing it a lot. I still want to hear it every time. It's
zero burn. The metrics on that song, there's all this call out research. And of course they don't do that anymore, but up until they quit doing call out research, it never had any burn, which meant, when they would call and poll respondents and listeners, that the question is, are you tired of hearing it? And it would be zero.
It's one of those.
It's amazing. It's so lucky.
It's one of the, well, also another thing about that song too. I mean, I'm sure you've been asked a million times in interviews, but I want to cover this too, is that, because again, for weddings, a lot of people want that song.
Yeah.
When you played with Sound Connection with us, that was one of the songs they wanted to hear was I'll Be. And, I know it's really a breakup song, and yet people, what I feel is that, it doesn't matter. People will put their own interpretation on it, and who cares if they are feeling, if it's moving them in a loving way, it reminds them in some positive way of their relationship, fine.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, like, people will ask me to clarify what I meant with a lyric, and I always am reluctant to do that, because it's not,
then you're imposing your,
my intention is almost insignificant, because your interpretation of it is what completes the art. Like, art doesn't really become complete to me until it's been interpreted, and whoever the listener or the viewer has enrolled themselves in your process and interpreted it for themselves. And so by telling you how to feel about something, I've interfered with the entire loop.
Somehow this is also making me think about, how Dylan will change his lyrics on the same songs later. I love that. Why not?
Yeah.
Who says a song, it has to end?
And honestly, and over the course of years, like, I've written lyrics that I wasn't really quite sure what I meant by them, or, sometimes they just rhyme, and then years later, what it means becomes clear because of what I've lived. And you start going, wow, that was
is there a song in particular when you say that?
Should have been listening. Well, one that definitely changed, completely for me is Solitude, because I wrote it from the perspective of a 22-year-old or a 20-year-old that was, sort of railing against, a parent that had locked their kid up in rehab, and now as a 47-year-old.
Is that autobiographic?
No, it's about a friend of mine.
Oh, okay. Just want to clarify.
It's about a friend of mine that I knew, who got in trouble with drugs and got put into a rehab against his will when he was a teenager for 2 years.
Oh.
And so it was rough.
Yeah.
But now as a parent and as someone who's 9 years in recovery, my feeling about that song has changed significantly. I'm much more empathetic to her and what her options were to keep her son safe at a time where there wasn't really any understanding of what addiction medicine needed to be. And anyway, so
you're saying when you sing it now,
and I sing it now, and that song is a different song completely, because it was, it was from his point of view and sort of angry, when I wrote it. And now it's really, what would you do if you were her, is what usually ends up in my mind while I'm singing it. So there's those kinds of songs. And, I can't obviously get way down the wormhole with the lyrics, but, there's a line in a song called Sorry to a Friend, and, like a stone in the stream, life smooths all your edges. And I really feel that lyric now. Like, I used to think of it was much more of a metaphor.
Yeah. For what in your mind? For
now. But now, my edges are smooth. I used to be a lot edgier than I am. And it's just time. And there's a great line in that movie, Carlito's Way. It's not that you can't run. It's just that you're out of wind. You know what I mean? It's just, it's interesting. I've embraced this part of my life. I like being in the middle path.
So let's go back to I Could Not Ask for More then. Right. I mean, now this is a Diane Warren song.
I went kicking and screaming on that one. I didn't want to do it.
But let me ask, because it wasn't your song, or because it was just that was the main thing? Well, so how did that come about? What do you mean? They brought it to you and said, we'd like you to sing this?
They said, Atlantic goes, listen, Diane Warren has written a song for you. I said, who's Diane Warren?
Yeah,
they
let's
said,
clarify.
You don't know who Diane Warren is? I was like, no. It's like, why would I know her?
Yeah, and let's clarify. Celine Dion's Because You Love Me, Aerosmith's I Don't Want to Miss a Thing.
Of course.
Just anyway,
her
on and on and on and on and on.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know who she was.
Okay.
But
you knew her songs.
No, I didn't.
Oh, really?
I knew of the songs, but I didn't know them. But of course, I was listening to I'm busy listening to my Replacements record and Bob Mould and Husker Du and, just a weird little music taste that I have. Anyway, so they came and they said, Diane Warren's written the song. I was like, who's Diane Warren? You got to do this. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. And at that point I was, egocentric enough to believe in my own greatness. And so I just wanted to do my own music.
Yeah. And
they said, well, what do you mean no? They didn't expect me to say no. I said, well, I've got some really good music on this record that I think
and you had I'll Be.
Yeah. And I was thinking this song Promise of You would be amazing and you guys can blow it up. It'll be just as good. I'm 100% sure it'll be as big. At that point, by then I've convinced myself that I have some force in making this happen, as opposed to the sheer luck of being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
So anyway, they said, well, what if we pay you to do it?
What?
Like on a soundtrack? I was like, okay. I was like, all right, yeah, man.
That's right.
You want to hire me?
Yeah, I forgot about this.
You want to hire me to sing it on a soundtrack? I was like, yeah, okay, pay me. I'll sing it. And so we recorded this song for a soundtrack, but it was just a side door move because they put it on a soundtrack, released it.
Yeah.
And then of course it hit.
Yeah. Big.
Right. So then when it hit, they were like, listen, Meatloaf. We're putting this on your record. And I was like, at that point, what can you say? And two, at that point, I had to, remember that all the way up until this point, anything they ever asked me to do, I said yes to.
Right.
And I'm a total team player. And I looked at it like, you know what? My drummer's got kids. Our whole band that we've had for all this time are all together. If I don't play ball, then they're going to go on to the next artist that will. And I need to just get back to being the journeyman that I was 6 months ago.
But what about the fact that it's also bringing you maybe more audience to then hear all your other stuff, your original songs?
I didn't think,
or you didn't want to mix it up.
But I didn't think that way when I was 27 or 28. I mean, I was not, I wanted to believe that I had more to do with it than I did. So this is the best part. This is why I say that 47-year-old me would never be friends with 27-year-old me because 27-year-old me said things like, I don't want to just be known for singing wedding songs. And at 47, I'm so happy that I'm perennially associated with weddings.
Can you say more about that? Why?
Because every year it's like I get a new life and people use these songs in the potentially the most important day of their life.
Yeah.
And how amazing is that? How incredible is that endorsement? And how grateful can you be that someone would do that? And so now I look at it and go, I have been so lucky beyond belief. And the fact that is true just makes me even more grateful. And so I every year during wedding season, I sit there and go, I can't believe that I have 3 songs that are perennially associated with weddings.
No, people still.
And now I get to go and have a job and that I love and play all over the world because of weddings, really.
Do you know what?
Let's be honest.
When we did that wedding together long ago, I think you'd like hearing this. The bride and groom said to me ahead of time, Edwin McCain songs, not just that one, but in general, was the soundtrack to their relationship, to their love affair.
I'm still friends with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. They still come to the shows and every time we do this now, we see people later and they bring their kids and then we,
Right.
you know, and it's such an interesting, opportunity that someone would let you into their life like that. Really. And it's not lost on me. It was lost on me when I was 27. It's not lost on me at 47.
Are you still playing weddings? Being hired?
Often.
That's even more than the corporate work?
It's probably an equal measure, and in between corporate and weddings. And quite frankly, I love them because it is easy to over deliver at a corporate event.
Yeah.
And do more than they were ever expecting you to do. As far as like meeting people and spending time and doing, playing longer, than they thought or playing, unexpected acoustic show after the fact. And because that doesn't happen a lot, I've made lifelong relationships with all kinds of different people, in all kinds of different fields. And as a separate result, I've actually ended up helping people do deals because I did a corporate gig with this person.
Yeah.
And a corporate gig with this person that don't know each other. But then I go, you guys need to know.
That's funny.
You guys should know each other because you're in complementary businesses.
That's really
I've
funny.
I've put together oil well deals.
Jeez. I hope you're getting a cut.
No, you know, it's funny because I'd never asked for one. I've been given stuff because of that.
Yeah.
But I've never asked for it.
Yeah.
I like putting people together and see what happens. You know, it's fun.
Well, and with the weddings, you know, to me, it's all about connection, right? I mean, to me, that's the ultimate. And I was the same in the very, very beginning when I started doing, don't have original songs, but when I was doing the weddings, at first I looked down on it. And then I started to realize, like you're saying, oh my God, this is one of the biggest moments of people's lives and their friends and family coming together with them.
And they invited you to be part of that.
Yeah. And you're helping to facilitate and be a part of it.
I'll tell you a funny story. I got an email from a woman that referenced clubs that only somebody that had been with us our entire career would know. And she said, my sister's getting married. She's a huge fan. If you could come and sing Walk With You for her and her father.
Wow.
Could you do it?
Yeah.
I'll take this slow, sweet walk with you. You letting go of my hand to say I do.
And she's a huge fan, huge fan. And I didn't know if I could do it. There was some conflicts in schedule, and I didn't respond to her. But I had the date in my mind, and it turned out I was in Charleston, and I said, "This is going to work." So I just showed up.
Oh, geez.
I didn't tell them I was coming.
Oh, they must have loved that.
I didn't tell them I was coming.
Yeah.
And so I went and talked to the band leader. I said, look, they don't even know I'm here. Yeah. They have no idea. Yeah. And so I just wanted to make this happen. And so the bride walked in and freaked out.
Yeah.
Like not just kind of freaked out, freaked out to the point where she had to go somewhere else and like,
oh no,
like
collect herself.
Yeah. Oh, and the husband was like, thanks a lot, man. You could see the look on his face. He was like, dude, what the hell? It's my wedding day and you've made my wife go berserker. And so anyway, so she comes out, I play the song and it's all good. It was just a good feeling, good gesture thing to do. Her father comes over to me and he is as pale as this wall. He's ashen. And he looks at me and he goes, do I have to pay you?
Of all things for him to say.
You got to give me a couple of those shrimp cocktails and a good glass of sweet tea. And I like to do stuff like that occasionally if I can.
Yeah. Just surprise people.
Yeah. You know, if I get I'll get a random request or like, you know, somebody, that I know is a fan or a friend of the family. And, you know, I just feel like it's in the karma bank to just do something like that occasionally and just, do it because it's the nice thing to do.
Well, and you have a song. So you have a song now in terms of what you just released lately. I paid particular attention to Home.
Right.
I mean, the lyric of that. God, I wish. Do you have a guitar nearby?
It's
okay.
It's not acoustic either. It's like a solid body. So, but the home is about a little handprint that my daughter left on a wall.
Yeah,
a sticky handprint.
Oh, literally, that's what happened. That gave you the inspiration
She left this little sticky handprint on the wall, and we were gonna move.
Yeah,
and then I saw a handprint, and I was like, "We're not moving."
Are you okay a cappella sing just that first verse or saying the words of it?
There's a tiny handprint 2 feet from the floor on the wall outside our upstairs bedroom door. Her tiny hand, sticky from the pancakes, making sure that daddy's waking up to kiss her tiny face. This is home to me. Anyway, it's like that. Yeah, no, it's...
Man, see, like right away, I'm in it. I mean, the imagery that you paint, and I have a daughter, she's 22 now, but...
So you remember.
I was so moved. But I'm listening to that song the first time, I'm just like,
Well, the thing...
You captured it.
And the thing is interesting is because when I was in my 20s, I wrote in global terms, in global themes, these huge, like these big ideas, you know. I want to talk in these big Earth, Wind, and Fire ideas.
Idealistic kind of stuff, change the world.
And now I find the poetry in a sticky handprint on a wall.
And I would say that that's even more impactful.
So it can be, I believe. But I find, you know, that's the part where the edges are smooth, is that I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being a father of 3, 47-year-old, used to think he was cool kind of guy, you know, and I don't, you know, I don't aspire to anything other than that. And it's fine. But, you know, there was a time when I was 20, I wanted to be David Lee Roth so bad I couldn't stand it. Yeah. You know, and now I'm so lucky that 20-year-old me really didn't get his way at all.
Wow. Well, and you know, and I want to say too, I really so I, you know, pretty much discovered you for myself when they hired you long ago. I ran out, got a record. Oh, and by the way, like after the gig was over and I think it was Messenger's Wish in This World.
Yeah.
I listened to Wish in This World. I'm like, oh, damn, if I had only known about that when you were with us, I would have surprised you because we had, you know, horn band and everything, and we would have learned that tune.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd been dying to do that. And
that's,
song.
You know, that song was the whole, it was the crystallization of what it is to be a band and trying like hell to make it happen. And Maya Sharp, my writing partner, accurately accuses me of this. It's easy for me to say and to speak in the terms that I speak in because I got to ride the ride. You know, I went to the mountain and I left the mountain and went back to being an indie artist and survived, so it's really easy for me to talk in these terms like, you know, so I always want to put an asterisk by it by saying that it's all sort of cloaked in how grateful I am that I was lucky enough to even be in the position. And I'm sure there was a period of time that I would have told you that I would have bragged on it and said I was responsible for it, but not now. I was so lucky to be able to have the relationships. And this is what I say all the time about the music business is that there's all these milestones I should remember, like professionally. Yeah. And I don't remember any of them, but I remember all the friendships and I still have them. I have almost all of them. I mean, and the currency has come and gone. And I lost a huge publishing deal in a bad situation where I lost $1 million in one day. Oh no. And it doesn't bother me a bit. Because the currency has been the relationships, and you can ever put a price on the value of these relationships that I built over a 26-year career in the music industry. I would trade that $1 million like right now again for it all. to ride the exact same ride over and over again. And we didn't, we had a lot of almost breakthrough to the massive moment.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen, but riding on the tip of my tongue for 15 years in the big time music business was rapture. It was so much fun. We were always on the chase, and it was amazing. It was incredible.
Wow.
I wouldn't change a stroke of it. And I'll tell you that there are a lot of people that look back on their days with acrimony. And there was a lot of people that had an us versus them mentality, but think about a company investing millions of dollars promoting you and your music and your band. And I think, it's amazing they gave us 15%. It's amazing. Jeez, they let us
perspective you had.
Like, it was amazing that they gave us what they gave us. Like, you think the amount of money they spent promoting us. And I remember being around people that would just get sideways about the music business. And I remember thinking, what else would you be doing? Where would you be right now if not for these people and this record company? And yeah, there's some things that you got to do, but you signed up for this. Like, don't show up at the basketball court with a tennis racket. It's like, let's play ball.
That's the biggest issue, is people not taking responsibility for their lives, for their choices.
But, and here's what I say all the time. It's real interesting. The collision of egocentricity and neediness that drives someone to the stage is a tornado.
Kind of typical for an artist.
It's crazy. And it is so counterproductive. The thing that makes you powerful emotionally and musically and makes you feel important enough to want to share some really emotional moment in front of a bunch of people is also the thing that really makes it hard for you to go play the hot dog party at the radio station. But you need to do that because if you don't, then you don't get to have your moment on the stage. And it's the perfect yin and yang. You can't have those special moments unless you're willing to roll up your sleeves and do some work. And fortunately for me, I just came along at the right time. It was the right place at the right time. And I was so eager to work that I would do anything.
Well, the right place at the right time. And you were prepared, man. Well, I mean, you've got, and I want to say too, when before we wrap up here, when I hear you perform, I mean, this gratefulness that you feel, this connection with the crowd really is a huge part of at least what draws me in, so I urge anyone to come see you live. I can't wait for tonight. So I myself can't wait. So man, thanks, Edwin. This has been a blast.
I appreciate it.
This has been great.
This has been The Wedding Biz. You can find us at theweddingbiz.com and on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Wedding Biz Show. If you want to support the show, we'd be grateful if you shared it with colleagues, friends, and family. We'd also appreciate your review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.